Daniel Price stood in the massive hall of the alien palace. He felt uncomfortable in the formal clothes they made him wear. At 32 years old, he had seen enough war to last him forever. Now he was supposed to be nice to alien royalty because he saved some important person's life during a fight on a planet called Horizon 7. King Vexthor walked toward him. The king was huge, with shiny scales and 4 arms. Behind the king, 2 guards pulled a large cage. Inside was something that looked like a giant wolf. It was as big as a small horse. Its fur was black with silver marks, and its eyes glowed orange. "Honored warrior Daniel Price," the king said through a translator device, "for your bravery, I give you Coda, a Varkesh hound. May he serve you as you have served the peace between our worlds." Everyone in the room started whispering. Daniel did not need to understand their language to see that many people looked disgusted. His helper, Lieutenant Sophie Grant, looked worried beside him. "Your Majesty," Daniel started to say. "I am honored, but..." The creature in the cage spoke. Its voice sounded rough but completely human. "Oh, wonderful. Another human who does not want me. How nice." Daniel froze. Sophie's hand moved to her gun without thinking. The king's face changed. He looked angry. "Coda has been a problem. He was once a royal guard, but his mouth and his failures have made him useless for our court. Perhaps among humans he will find a purpose or die. Either one is fine with me." The wolf named Coda laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Such kind words, my king. Should I write a song about how generous you are?" Daniel looked at the creature, then at the king. He knew he had no choice. Saying no would cause big problems. He stood up straight and nodded. "I accept your gift, Your Majesty. Thank you." After the ceremony ended and they took the cage to Daniel's room, Sophie pulled him to the side. "Do you know what you just accepted? Those things are dangerous. They are made for war. And this one clearly has problems." "Yeah, well, so do I," Daniel said quietly, watching them wheel the cage away. "I guess we will figure it out together." That night in his room, Daniel stood in front of the cage. Coda lay inside with his huge head resting on his paws. He watched Daniel with smart, careful eyes. "So," Daniel said, pulling up a chair, "you talk." "Amazing," Coda replied in a dry voice. "Did they teach you that in the army?" "They taught me how to deal with difficult people," Daniel shot back. "Want to tell me why the king hates you so much?" Coda's ears moved. "I told him the truth when he wanted lies. I failed to save his son during an attack because I was following his own security rules instead of my gut feelings. And I am everything his people think is ugly and wrong. Bad genetics. I think too much, talk too much, and look like death itself according to them." Daniel studied the creature. "Do you blame yourself for the prince?" "Every single day." Coda's voice became quieter, losing its bitter tone. "But blame does not bring anyone back. The king needed someone to hate. I am easy to hate." "Well," Daniel said, reaching for the lock on the cage, "I am not the king, and I do not believe in keeping people in cages." "I could kill you the moment you open that," Coda warned, but his voice did not sound serious. Daniel looked him in the eyes. "You could, but you will not." "How do you know?" "Because you are still talking instead of planning an attack. And because I know someone who has been carrying guilt they should not carry. So are we doing this or not?" For a long moment, Coda said nothing. Then slowly he stood up as Daniel opened the cage. The huge wolf stepped out, stretching his muscles. He was even bigger outside the cage. "I should warn you," Coda said quietly. "I am not exactly stable. The changes they made to give me intelligence also gave me what your kind calls anxiety and depression. I am a walking problem, a predator that thinks too much about right and wrong." Daniel almost smiled. "Yeah, well, welcome to the club. I have enough medicine back on Earth to fill a store. We will figure it out." Coda tilted his head, studying this strange human. "You are either very brave or very stupid. I have been called both. Usually at the same time." Daniel pointed to the couch. "Are you hungry?" "I have no idea what you eat, but I have food and whatever the aliens left for me. I eat meat, preferably not anything that can think." Coda walked to the window, looking out at the alien city below. "Why are you being kind to me? You heard what I am. You know what I have done." Daniel joined him at the window. "Because I know what it is like to be the one everyone looks at differently after you come back from war. And because maybe the king giving you to me was not the punishment he thought it was. Maybe it is a chance for both of us to figure out what comes next." Coda turned to look at him. Something changed in those orange eyes. "You are serious." dead serious. Look, I do not know what your life has been like, and you do not know mine. But I do know that I am not going back to Earth for 6 more months. I am stuck on this job, and I could use someone who tells me the truth. Even if that someone is a giant wolf with an attitude problem. For the first time, Coda's face softened a little. All right, Daniel Price, I will make you a deal. You treat me like a person, not a pet or a weapon, and I will watch your back in this place full of liars. Fair? Daniel held out his hand. After waiting for a moment, Coda raised one huge paw and they shook. Fair, Daniel agreed. Now let us figure out how to survive this place together. Outside the window, the alien city glowed with strange lights. Neither Daniel nor Coda knew what would come next. But for the first time in a long time, neither of them felt completely alone. Coda moved to the far side of the room and lay down. You should know something else, he said. The king did not give me to you just because he hates me. He gave me to you because he thinks I will cause you problems. He wants to embarrass you, maybe even get you sent home. That way, he can say humans cannot even handle a simple gift. Daniel thought about this. So this is some kind of test? Everything here is a test. Politics, Daniel. It is all games and tricks. The king wants the alliance with humans, but there are many in his court who do not. They will look for any excuse to make humans look bad. Well, then we better not give them one. Daniel sat down on the couch. Tell me about this place. The court, the politics, who I need to watch out for. Coda's eyes gleamed. Now you are thinking smart. There is Lord Taven. He is the most dangerous. He smiles and acts friendly, but he hates humans. He thinks your people will destroy Keltharian culture. Then there is Lady Sira. She is actually on your side, but she is weak in the court. Ambassador Cole probably already told you about some of this. She gave me files to read, but files do not tell you the real story. No, they do not. Coda sat up, looking more alive than he had before. The real story is that the king's son, Prince Velkan, was the one who really wanted the alliance. He believed humans and Keltharians could learn from each other. When he died, the king blamed me, but really he blames himself for not listening to his son's warnings about security. Warnings about what? About traitors in the court. The prince told his father there were people planning something. The king did not believe him. Then the attack happened and the prince died. Coda's voice became sad. I was there. I tried to save him. But there were too many attackers and the security team was in the wrong place. Almost like someone made sure they would be. Daniel leaned forward. You think it was an inside job? I know it was, but I cannot prove it. And who would believe me? I am just the failed guard who let the prince die. Coda looked away. That is why the king really hates me. Every time he sees me, he remembers that day. He remembers that someone in his own court killed his son, and he does not know who. Have you told anyone else about this? Who would I tell? The guards who think I am cursed? The nobles who think I am an ugly mistake? You are the first person who has treated me like I have a brain in my head since that day. Daniel stood up and walked to the window. His mind was working through the problem. If Coda was right, if there really was a traitor in the court, that person would still be there. Still working against the alliance, still dangerous, we need to be careful, Daniel said. If someone was willing to kill the prince, they will not think twice about killing us. Now you understand why I am not exactly excited about my situation. Coda joined him at the window. But maybe you are right. Maybe this is a chance. If we can find out who really killed the prince, we could clear my name and save the alliance at the same time. That is a big if. Yes. But what else are we going to do for 6 months? Sit around and be nice to people who hate us? Daniel looked at the wolf and saw something he recognized. The same need to find answers, to make things right, that he felt himself. They were both soldiers without a war, both looking for a way to fix something broken. All right, Daniel said. But we do this smart. No rushing in. We watch, we listen, we learn. And we trust each other. Coda nodded slowly. I can do that. It has been a long time since I had someone to trust. Same here. They stood together at the window looking out at a city full of secrets and danger. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight they had made a choice. They would face those challenges together. And maybe, just maybe, they would find the truth that everyone else wanted to stay buried. 3 weeks passed since Daniel opened Coda's cage. Having a talking wolf as a companion was strange, but it became normal faster than Daniel expected. Coda moved into the second bedroom, though he spent most of his time on the balcony watching the city with those sharp orange eyes. The real problem started when Daniel got invited to his first big event. Ambassador Patricia Cole came to his office that morning. She was a sharp woman in her 50s who had little patience for soldiers playing at politics. "Price, I need you at the trade summit tonight," she said in a voice that meant no arguing. "The Keltharians respect military service. Your presence matters. Will I need to bring Coda?" Daniel asked, already knowing the answer. Cole's face showed her dislike. "Absolutely not. That creature is already causing enough talk. Do you know what the staff calls him?" "The Cursed One. There are old stories about Varkesh hounds that speak. They think he brings bad luck." From the doorway, Coda's voice came in. "How nice. I went from failure to bad omen." Cole went stiff. She had not known the wolf was listening. Coda walked into the room, his size making the office feel suddenly smaller. "Ambassador," Coda said, his voice perfectly polite but fake. "I promised to stay far away from your important summit. Would not want my cursed presence to ruin the food." "That is not," Cole started, but Coda had already turned and left. Daniel found him later on the balcony. The wolf was lying down with his chin on his paws, staring at nothing. "You know she did not mean it personally," Daniel said, sitting beside him. "Did she not?" Coda did not look at him. "I have heard it all before, Daniel. I am used to it. That does not make it right." "No, but it makes it true." Coda finally turned his head. "You should go to the summit. Do not worry about me. I'm good at being alone." Daniel was about to argue when his communication device made a sound. It was Lieutenant Sophie Grant, and she sounded worried. "Price, we have a situation. There has been an explosion in the lower city. Some kind of bomb near the market area. The Keltharian security is responding. But Ambassador Cole wants our team ready. You are needed at the embassy now." "On my way," Daniel said, already moving. He looked back at Coda. "Stay here. I will be back." "Be careful," Coda said quietly. "The Keltharians get nervous when things explode. Their response can be too much." Daniel got to the embassy and found controlled chaos. Sophie was talking with the Keltharian authorities while Ambassador Cole was on 3 different calls trying to make sure no humans were hurt. "What do we know?" Daniel asked Sophie. "Not much. Bomb in the market, people are dead, but we do not know how many. The Keltharians are saying it might be the resistance group. The broken chain. They have been quiet for months, but if they are active again, this could destroy the whole peace process." The broken chain. Daniel had read about them in his files. A group of Keltharians who did not want the alliance with humans. They thought humans would ruin their traditional ways. They were responsible for several attacks, including the one that killed King Vexthor's son. The same attack Coda had failed to stop. "Are we sending anyone to help?" Daniel asked. "No," Cole said firmly, ending one of her calls. "We stay here, we stay neutral, and we let the Keltharians handle their own security. That is the rule." But over the next hour, as news came in, things got worse. The explosion had been a trick. The real target was a group of trucks carrying medical supplies for a joint human Keltharian hospital project. The supplies had been stolen and 3 Keltharian guards were dead. "This is a disaster," Cole said quietly. "The summit is supposed to announce bigger cooperation on healthcare. If it looks like we cannot protect our own project, it makes Earth look weak," Daniel finished, "and gives fuel to everyone who does not want the alliance." Sophie looked up from her screen. "There is more. The Keltharian news is already running with it. Some political group is claiming this proves human influence is destroying their society. They are calling for the summit to be cancelled." Daniel's mind raced. This was not just a robbery. It was a planned political strike, timed perfectly to hurt the summit. Someone wanted the alliance to fail. He left and headed back to his room. Coda was still on the balcony, but his body language had changed. He was alert, ears forward, every muscle tight. "You heard?" Daniel said. "The whole city heard. Explosions get attention." Coda stood, turning to face him. "This was not random, Daniel. The broken chain does not just steal medical supplies. They destroy them to make a point. Stealing means someone wants those supplies for something else. Like what? I do not know, but I know who might." Coda waited a moment. "There is someone in the lower city, a contact from my time with the Royal Guard. She runs an information network, trades in secrets. If anyone knows what the broken chain is planning, it is her." Daniel thought about this. "Cole will never allow it. We are supposed to stay neutral. I am not talking about official permission. I am talking about you and me tonight, before the trail goes cold." Coda's orange eyes locked onto Daniel's. I know you were special forces before you went regular army. I have seen how you move, how you look at threats. You miss it, do you not? The action? This is not about what I miss. This is about not starting a problem. The problem already started. You can sit here and watch politicians mess this up, or you can actually do something. Coda moved closer. I know these streets, Daniel. I know how the resistance works. And I know that if the summit fails, the king will find a way to blame humans for it. Your people will take the fall. Daniel knew Coda was right. He also knew that going alone could end his career, get him in serious trouble, and possibly cause a big incident. He thought about all the good the Alliance could do. The technology sharing, the mutual defense, the cultural exchange that gave humanity a real place among the stars. He thought about what his unit had fought for on Horizon 7. All right, he said, but we do this smart. No hero moves, no fights. We get information and get out, agreed? Coda's teeth showed in what might have been a smile. Agreed, we leave in 2 hours after dark. Wear something that does not scream soldier. As Daniel got ready, changing into normal clothes and checking his gun, Sophie appeared at his door. Going somewhere? She asked, looking at his outfit. Daniel thought about lying, but decided against it. Sophie had served with him on Horizon 7. She deserved the truth. Better if you do not know the details. Sophie looked at him for a long moment, then sighed. If you are doing what I think you are doing, take this. She handed him a small device. Personal tracker. If you get in trouble, trigger it. I will come running, rules be damned. Thank you, Sophie. Do not thank me. Just do not get killed. And Price? Whatever Coda has planned, watch your back. He might be on our side now, but he is still Keltharian. His loyalties could change. After she left, Daniel found Coda waiting by the door. The wolf had somehow found a kind of harness that made him look less like a royal guard and more like a working animal. Smart disguise, Daniel noted. I have learned a few tricks over the years. Ready? They slipped out of the embassy through a service door Coda had found earlier. The lower city was a maze of narrow streets and crowded markets, completely different from the clean towers of the diplomatic area. Coda moved through the crowds easily, and Daniel followed, staying close. The locals gave them strange looks, a human and a Varkesh hound together. But in this part of the city, strange was normal. They arrived at a building that looked old and worn down. Coda led Daniel through a side door and downstairs into what looked like an underground bar. Everyone went silent when they entered. Daniel felt dozens of eyes on them, none friendly. A voice called out from the back. Well, well, the king's reject returns, and with a human pet no less. A Keltharian female came out from the shadows. She was smaller than King Vexthor, with darker scales and only 2 arms, but her eyes were sharp and smart. She wore many technological devices on her belt, and Daniel recognized at least 3 different types of weapons. Hello, Mara, Coda said calmly. I need information. Of course you do. Everyone needs something from Mara. She looked at Daniel with open interest. This the army human? The one the king dumped you on? His name is Daniel Price, and he is with me, Coda said with an edge in his voice. Mara laughed. Protective. How sweet. What is in it for me, Coda? I do not trade in feelings. Credits, Daniel said, stepping forward. Earth credits. Can be transferred and cannot be traced. Mara's eyes gleamed. Now the pet speaks. How much? Depends on what you know about the truck attack. Ah, straight to business. I like him, Coda. Mara motioned for them to follow her to a back room. The attack was not the broken chain. Oh, they will claim they did it, they always do. But it was too clean, too professional. Someone hired outside help. Who? Coda asked. That information costs extra. But I will tell you this much for free because I like you, old friend. Whoever planned this wants the summit to fail. But not because they hate humans. They want it to fail because success would change the balance of power in the royal court. This is about Keltharian politics, not human alliance. Daniel took this in. Someone in the king's own court? I did not say that. But I did not say it either. Mara leaned back. The medical supplies were not destroyed. They were taken to the old industrial sector, warehouse area. That is all I know without payment. The warehouse area spread before them like a graveyard of old industry. Daniel crouched on the rooftop beside Coda, studying the building through his scope. 6 guards visible around the edges, probably more inside. The transport truck sat near a loading area with its back doors open. I count at least 3 more on rotation. Coda said quietly. his better senses picking up what Daniel's eyes could not. And there is something else. That smell, chemical compounds, medical grade. They are not just storing the supplies. They are doing something with them. Daniel lowered his scope. We need visual proof. Photos, recordings, something we can take back to Ambassador Cole that proves this is not the broken chain. The roof access on the east side is your best way in, Coda said, his tactical mind clearly still sharp despite his years away from guard duty. I can create a distraction on the west side, pull the guards away long enough for you to slip inside. No splitting up. That is how people get killed in situations like this. Coda's orange eyes met his. Daniel, I appreciate the concern, but I am not some human soldier you need to protect. I was doing this kind of work when you were still in high school. Besides, in this form, I am faster and quieter than you will ever be. Let me do what I am good at. Daniel wanted to argue, but Coda was right. They needed to use their strengths. Fine, but you do not fight unless you have to. Create your distraction and fall back to the meeting point. 15 minutes in and out. 20. This is not a military base, it is a criminal operation. There will be unexpected things. They set their watches to match. Daniel moved toward the east side while Coda circled west, disappearing into the shadows with scary ease for a creature his size. Daniel reached the building's edge and waited. Right on time, he heard noise from the west side, shouts in Keltharian, guards rushing toward the sound. Coda had triggered something, an alarm or a problem. Daniel could not tell which. He went down to a lower roof section, found the access door Coda had talked about, and picked the lock with tools Sophie had definitely not given him from the embassy security office. Inside the building was a maze of metal walkways and storage boxes. Below, Daniel could see the stolen medical supplies stacked on platforms. But Coda had been right, there was activity here. Keltharians in work gear were opening boxes, looking at contents, sorting items into different groups. Daniel turned on his recording device, a small unit disguised as a button on his jacket. He needed to get closer. He moved along the walkway, keeping to the shadows. The Keltharians below were focused on their work, speaking in fast technical language that his translator struggled to follow. But he caught enough. They were separating advanced medical technology from basic supplies. The high-tech items, the ones Earth had given to the Joint Hospital Project, were being packed separately. One of the Keltharians, clearly the boss, spoke into a communication unit. Confirmed. The human technology is intact and working. Lord Taven will be pleased. Once the summit fails and the alliance collapses, these will be worth a fortune on the black market. Daniel's blood went cold. Lord Taven, he had seen that name in his files. A member of the royal court, a high-ranking noble who had been vocally against the human alliance but had supposedly been brought in line by the king. This was not just theft. This was sabotage with political backing from inside the Keltharian government itself. He was so focused on recording that he almost missed the sound behind him. Almost. Daniel spun, hand going to his gun, but froze. A Keltharian guard stood 3 meters away, weapon raised. Not one of the ones from outside. This one must have been inside the whole time. Human, the guard hissed. You have made a very stupid mistake. Before Daniel could respond, a massive black shape crashed through a window above, glass falling like rain. Coda landed between Daniel and the guard with a sound that echoed through the warehouse. The guard fired, but Coda was already moving. He hit the Keltharian like a truck, knocking the weapon aside. Below, the warehouse exploded with noise as others realized there were intruders. So much for stealth, Coda growled. Move! They ran along the walkway as weapons fire began to hit the metal around them. Daniel fired back, not to hit, but to keep them down to buy them seconds. Coda led the way, his natural ability allowing him to navigate the maze of industrial structures with terrifying speed. There, Coda shouted, pointing to a loading chute. It drops to the ground level, but it is our fastest exit. That is a 4-story drop. Trust me. Daniel did not have time to argue. He followed Coda into the chute and they slid down in a controlled fall that was anything but controlled. They hit a garbage pile at the bottom, the impact knocking the wind from Daniel's lungs. Coda grabbed Daniel's collar with his teeth and pulled him up. Run now, breathe later. They burst from the building into the maze of the industrial area. Behind them, alarms screamed and guards poured out in pursuit. But this was Coda's element. He led Daniel through narrow gaps between buildings, over fences, through abandoned structures that seemed to form a map only he could see. Finally, After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, they reached the meeting point, an abandoned transit station on the edge of the area. Daniel fell against a wall, gasping for air. "Did you get it?" Coda asked. "The recording?" Daniel checked his device. "Yeah, all of it. Proof that this is an inside job, that Lord Taven is behind it. Good, because we just made some very powerful enemies." Coda's ears moved, tracking sounds in the distance. "We need to get back to the embassy fast. Once Taven realizes we have evidence, he will move to stop it. That means stopping us." They made their way back through the lower city using back routes and staying off main streets. By the time they reached the embassy area, dawn was breaking over the alien skyline. Sophie was waiting at the service door, and she looked angry. "Do you have any idea what you have done?" she demanded. "The Keltharian security forces are looking for a human and a Varkesh hound who broke into a warehouse. There has been an official complaint filed with the embassy. Ambassador Cole is furious. We have evidence," Daniel said, pushing past her. "Evidence that clears the broken chain and points to a member of the royal court sabotaging the alliance." That stopped Sophie short. "What?" In Cole's office, Daniel showed his findings. The ambassador watched the recording 3 times, her face getting darker with each viewing. "This is explosive," she finally said. "If what you recorded is accurate, Lord Taven is committing treason against his own king." "But Daniel, the way you got this, I know. I broke about a dozen rules and probably a few laws. But if we do not act on this information, the summit fails, the alliance collapses, and Taven gets exactly what he wants." Cole turned to Coda, who had been sitting quietly in the corner. "And you. Why help? You are Keltharian. This exposes corruption in your own government." Coda met her look steadily. "I failed to protect the prince. I will not fail to protect the peace he died for. Whatever else I am still a soldier. And soldiers protect those who cannot protect themselves." Cole thought about this, then nodded slowly. "All right, but we cannot just show this to King Vexthor directly. If Taven has been working against the Alliance this whole time, he has allies, resources. We need to be smart about this." "What about the summit?" Sophie asked. "It is tomorrow night." "The summit goes ahead as planned," Cole decided. "But we arrange a private meeting with the king beforehand. We show our evidence, let him handle Taven internally, and then the summit becomes a celebration of justice rather than a vote on failure." "Will the king see us on such short notice?" Daniel asked. Cole smiled grimly. "He will see us if I make it clear we have information about his son's death. Taven's people might have done more than just steal medical supplies." Over the next 24 hours, Cole worked her diplomatic channels while Daniel and Coda stayed in their rooms, basically under protective watch. The recording had been checked by the embassy's technical team. The evidence was solid. The night before the summit, King Vexthor agreed to see them. Not in the grand hall, but in his private rooms, a smaller space but no less scary for it. Daniel, Cole, and Coda were brought in by royal guards. The king sat on a simple chair, looking somehow smaller and more human than when Daniel had first met him. "Ambassador Cole," the king said, "your message spoke of my son. Choose your next words carefully." Cole nodded to Daniel, who turned on the recording. They watched in silence as the evidence played out. When the boss mentioned Lord Taven by name, the king's face shifted from grief to cold rage. "How did you get this?" the king asked quietly. "Through methods I cannot officially support," Cole admitted, "but the information is accurate. We have checked the location, the stolen supplies, everything. Lord Taven has been undermining the alliance from within your own court." The king looked at Coda. "And you, Coda, you helped the human with this?" "I did, my king." "Why?" "You owe me nothing." "I threw you aside." Coda rose to his full height. "Because the prince's death was not my failure alone. I followed the security rules you ordered, rules I argued against. If Taven was involved in the assassination, as this evidence suggests he might have been, then he has been manipulating events for months. The prince deserved better, so did the alliance." The king was silent for a long moment. Then he stood. "You will all stay." The grand summit hall shined with diplomatic show. Groups from Earth and a dozen Keltharian provinces filled the space. Diplomats in formal clothes mixing beneath crystal lights that broke light into rainbow patterns. Daniel stood at the edge of the hall in his dress uniform, feeling out of place among the political elite. Beside him, Coda sat with unnatural stillness, drawing stares from every corner of the room. The king had demanded he attend, claiming that the Varkesh hound was now under royal protection. The whispers that followed them were impossible to ignore. "You would think they never saw a talking wolf before," Daniel said quietly. "In formal court settings they have not," Coda replied, his voice low. "Varkesh hounds are usually kept in the military areas or on estates. Bringing me here is a statement. I am just not sure what statement yet." Sophie walked over with 2 glasses of something that definitely was not water. The king just arrived. "Lord Taven is with the provincial group. 3rd row from the front. He looks calm." Daniel spotted him, a tall Keltharian with deep blue scales and an air of noble confidence. Taven was talking with other nobles, laughing at something, completely at ease. He had no idea what was coming. Ambassador Cole took the stage as the opening ceremonies began. She spoke of cooperation, shared futures, the promise of the human Keltharian alliance. It was standard diplomatic talk, but Daniel could see the tension in her shoulders. Everything depended on what happened next. King Vexthor was introduced to loud applause. He took the stage with royal bearing, his forearms moving gracefully as he spoke of unity and progress. Then his tone changed. "But before we celebrate what we have built together," the king said, his voice carrying through the hall, "we must address those who would tear it down from within." The hall went silent. Daniel saw Taven's expression flicker, just for a moment, a crack in his calm face. "Last night," the king continued, "I was given evidence of a conspiracy that sought to sabotage this alliance, to profit from the suffering of both our peoples, and perhaps even played a role in the death of my son." Now the murmurs began, spreading through the crowd like a wave. Taven stayed seated, but his hands had gripped the armrests of his chair. The king motioned, and the recording Daniel had captured began to play on holographic displays throughout the hall. The supervisor's voice filled the space. "Lord Taven will be pleased. Once the summit fails and the alliance collapses, these will be worth a fortune on the black market." The hall erupted. Taven shot to his feet, his voice booming. "This is a lie! A human trick to divide us, is it?" The king's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Then explain why royal guards found the stolen medical supplies exactly where this recording said they would be. Explain why your financial records, which I have had thoroughly checked overnight, show payments to known criminals. Explain why you have been secretly storing advanced Earth technology in violation of every trade agreement we have signed." Taven's scales had gone pale. "My king, I was protecting Keltharian interests. The humans cannot be trusted." "Cannot be trusted?" The king walked down from the stage, moving toward Taven with measured steps. "It was not humans who stole from joint projects. It was not humans who hired criminals to murder my guards, and it was not humans who arranged for weakened security on the day my son died." The accusation hung in the air. Taven looked around desperately, seeking support. But the nobles who had been laughing with him minutes ago now moved away. "You have no proof of that," Taven said, but his voice had lost its strength. "Do I not?" The king looked toward the entrance. "Bring her in." Guards brought Mara into the hall. The information broker looked clearly uncomfortable in the formal setting, but her voice was steady as she spoke. "I sold information to Lord Taven 3 months before the prince's death," she said. "Information about royal guard schedules, security rules, the prince's daily routine. At the time, I thought he was just being careful. Now I know better." Taven rushed toward Mara, but royal guards stopped him. As they held him back, something fell from his robes, a small device. Coda was moving before Daniel even saw the threat. The Varkesh hound jumped across the hall, covering the distance in 3 massive bounds. He grabbed the device in his jaws just as it began to make a high-pitched sound, and threw it through an open window. The explosion outside shook the building but caused no injuries. For a moment, absolute silence. Then Coda walked back to Daniel's side, sitting calmly as if he had not just saved half the diplomatic corps from an assassination attempt. "A fragmentation device," Coda said in a normal voice. "Military grade. Taven was willing to kill everyone here rather than face justice." The king stared at Taven with something beyond rage, something colder and more final. "Take him to the detention cells. He will stand trial for treason, conspiracy to commit murder, and attempted mass assassination. And someone find out who else was involved in this plot." As guards dragged Taven away, still screaming about human corruption and Keltharian purity, the king turned to address the hall. "Let this be a lesson," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "The threat to our alliance did not come from humans. It came from those among us who chose fear and greed over honor. The human soldier Daniel Price and the Varkesh hound Coda, whom I once threw aside as worthless, have done more to protect this alliance than many I called trusted advisors. The king walked up to Daniel and Coda directly. Daniel Price, on behalf of the Keltharian Confederacy, I thank you, and I apologize for burdening you with what I thought was a curse. With respect, Your Majesty, Daniel said carefully. Coda is not a burden. He is a partner, and maybe the best thing that could have happened to both of us. The king's expression softened. He turned to Coda. I threw you aside in grief and anger. I blamed you for a failure that was not yours. I see now that you were trying to save my son from a conspiracy I was too blind to see. Can you forgive an old fool his mistakes? Coda was quiet for a long moment. I cannot bring back the prince, my king, but I can tell you that he died trying to protect the very alliance that Taven sought to destroy. He believed in unity between our peoples. Perhaps the best way to honor him is to make that belief a reality. The king placed his hand on Coda's head again, the gesture of respect and peace. Then that is what we shall do. And you, Coda, if you wish it, I would restore you to a position of honor, not as a guard but as an advisor. You see clearly what others miss. That is a rare gift. I appreciate the offer, my king, Coda said carefully, but I have found a new purpose. If Daniel will have me, I would like to continue working with him. There is much work to be done to strengthen this alliance, and we make a good team. All eyes turned to Daniel. He looked down at the massive wolf who had gone from unwanted gift to trusted companion in a matter of weeks. I would be honored, Daniel said simply. The king nodded. Then so be it. Daniel Price and Coda, you are hereby appointed as special liaisons between Earth and the Keltharian Confederacy. You will have the authority to investigate threats to the alliance, to move between our worlds freely, and to act in the interests of peace. Ambassador Cole looked like she wanted to object, but wisely kept silent. Sophie was grinning openly. The summit continued, but the tone had shifted entirely. What had been a careful diplomatic gathering had become something more. A genuine celebration of partnership forged not in politics but in shared crisis and mutual trust. Later that night, Daniel and Coda stood on the balcony of their quarters, watching the city lights. You know, Daniel said, when the king first gave you to me, I thought my life was over. Career finished, stuck playing diplomat with an angry wolf. And now, Coda asked, now I think maybe this is exactly where I am supposed to be. We did good work, Coda. Real work that mattered. We did, Coda agreed, though I suspect the hard part is just beginning. Taven was not working alone. There will be others who oppose the alliance, who see humans as a threat to Keltharian culture. Yeah, well, we will deal with them when they come, together. Coda's tail moved, the closest he usually came to showing pleasure. Together. I like the sound of that. A comfortable silence fell between them. Then Coda spoke again, his tone more serious. Daniel, can I ask you something? Sure. Back in the warehouse when that guard had you cornered? You could have shot him. You have killed before, I know you have, but you hesitated. Why? Daniel thought about the question. Because we were not there to start a war. We were there to prevent one. Taking a life, even an enemy's life, it should never be easy. The moment it becomes easy is the moment you have lost something important. Even after everything you have seen. Everything you have done in combat? Especially because of it, Daniel said quietly. I have seen what happens when killing becomes routine, when you stop seeing the person and just see the target. I never want to be that guy, and I do not think you do either. Coda was silent for a moment. No, I do not. That is why I failed the prince, you know. I hesitated when the assassins came. Part of me wondered if killing them would make me as monstrous as they were. By the time I acted, it was too late. You are not a monster, Coda. You are someone who thinks before acting, who questions orders that do not make sense. In my book, that makes you exactly the kind of soldier we need. Even if that soldier is a genetically made wolf with anxiety. 6 months had passed since the summit. Daniel sat in the newly made Joint Security Office, looking over reports from across the Keltharian Confederacy. The office was a compromise between Earth's embassy and the royal palace, neutral ground where human and Keltharian workers worked side by side. Coda lay on a custom-built platform near the window, supposedly resting, but Daniel knew better. The wolf's ears tracked every conversation in the room, processing information with the same tactical mind that had served the royal guard. Lieutenant Grant for you, the office computer announced. Sophie appeared on the holographic display. calling from Earth. She had been promoted and transferred back to coordinate the Alliance efforts from the home front. Daniel, good timing. I have got the permission you requested. The Council approved expanding your area of control to include the outer colonies. Congratulations, you are officially in charge of Alliance security for the entire sector. Daniel felt the weight of that responsibility settle onto his shoulders. That is a lot of territory. It is a lot of trust, Sophie corrected. After what you and Coda pulled off at the summit, you have got political support. Use it wisely. After the call ended, Daniel found Coda watching him with those sharp orange eyes. Having second thoughts? The wolf asked. Just wondering if we are ready for this. It is one thing to solve a conspiracy in the capital city. It is another to maintain peace across dozens of worlds. We are not maintaining it alone. Coda stood and stretched. Speaking of which, our new team members arrived today. Are you ready to meet them? The team had been Coda's idea. If they were going to work across the sector, they needed people they could trust. Individuals who understood both human and Keltharian views. The first to arrive was Marcus Lee, a former Marine intelligence officer who had spent 3 years working with Keltharian military units. He was compact, efficient, and had a reputation for getting results without starting wars. Sergeant Price, Marcus said, offering his hand. Heard you made quite an impression at the summit. It is just Daniel now. We are not standing on ceremony here. He pointed to Coda. And this is the legendary talking wolf. Yeah, your reputation goes before you too. Marcus showed no fear, meeting Coda's gaze directly. I read the reports. Nice work with that bomb device. Just doing what needed to be done, Coda replied, clearly sizing up the newcomer. The second arrival was unexpected. When the door opened, Daniel found himself face to face with Mara, the information broker from the lower city. Before you say anything, Mara announced, the king himself asked me to join your little operation. Apparently, having someone who knows the criminal underworld is considered valuable now. You are working for us? Daniel asked, surprised. Working with you? Big difference. I still maintain my own network, but I share relevant information and help track threats to the Alliance. In exchange, I get legitimacy, protection, and regular payment. Win-win. Coda's tail moved with what might have been amusement. Welcome to the team, Mara. Try not to sell our secrets, please, I have standards. Besides, keeping the Alliance intact is good for business. Instability is terrible for the information trade. The final member arrived quietly, a young Keltharian named Zek, barely out of adolescence by his species standards. He had green scales and a worried expression that made him look permanently concerned. I am the technical specialist, Zek explained nervously. I can work with pretty much any system, Keltharian or human. Ambassador Cole thought you might need someone who can handle the digital side of investigations. Can you keep us off security grids when we need to move quietly? Daniel asked. Absolutely. I can also set up secure communications, decode data, and track financial transactions. Though I should mention I have never actually been in a combat situation before. That is fine, Coda assured him. Not everyone needs to be a fighter. We need people who can think, adapt, and work together. With the team assembled, their first real mission came within days. Reports of smuggling operations near the colony world of Threshold 7, weapons moving between human and Keltharian criminal elements, small scale but potentially destabilizing. The team went to Threshold 7 in a modified transport ship that served as their mobile base. The colony was a frontier world, rough and underdeveloped, the kind of place where the law was more suggestion than requirement. Marcus and Mara worked the local contacts while Zek set up watching equipment on suspected smuggling sites. Daniel and Coda coordinated, planning their approach. It is different, Coda observed one night as they reviewed the intelligence. Working with a team instead of alone. Good different or bad different? Undecided. With the Royal Guard, everyone knew their role. This is more fluid. That is because we are not just following orders. We are building something new. Daniel highlighted a location on the map. Mara's sources say the next exchange happens here. Abandoned mining facility on the northern continent. If we can stop it, we can trace the supply chain back to whoever is organizing this. The operation went smoothly at first. The team moved into position around the mining facility, Zek blocking communications while Marcus and Mara created diversions. Daniel and Coda entered the facility itself, moving through the darkened corridors with practiced coordination. They found the smugglers in the main processing area, A mix of humans and Keltharians loading weapons boxes onto transport sleds. Too many to take in a straight fight. We need to identify the leaders, Coda whispered. Cut the head off this operation. But as they watched, something unexpected happened. One of the humans, a woman in her 40s with military bearing, stepped forward to check a shipment. Daniel recognized her immediately, Captain Lisa Ortiz. She had served in his division on Horizon 7, a decorated officer who had been reported killed in action 6 months ago. That is impossible, Daniel breathed. Coda's ears flattened. You know her? She is supposed to be dead. There was a memorial service. Lisa moved among the smugglers with authority, clearly in charge. She gave orders in both English and Keltharian, coordinating the operation with professional efficiency. Daniel's mind raced. If Lisa was alive and running weapons, it meant the official story about her death was a cover. But for what? Before he could process further, alarms blared. Zek's voice crackled over their communications. We have got incoming. Multiple ships, military type.
Someone must have tipped them off.
The smugglers scattered, but Lisa moved with purpose toward a specific exit. Daniel made a quick decision. Coda, with me. We are following her. They chased Lisa through the facility and out into the rocky terrain beyond. She was fast, clearly augmented. But Coda's natural speed let them keep pace. They cornered her at a cliff edge, weapons drawn. Daniel Price, Lisa said, showing no surprise. Heard you went into diplomacy. Guess old habits die hard. Everyone thinks you are dead, Lisa. What happened? What happened is I woke up. The alliance, the peace, it is all built on lies. Humans and Keltharians, we are too different. Eventually we will turn on each other. I am just making sure our people are ready when it happens. So you fake your death and start running weapons? That is your solution? I am protecting humanity. These weapons are going to human colonies on the frontier, places where they are vulnerable to Keltharian aggression. Coda growled, but Daniel held up a hand. There has not been any Keltharian aggression. The alliance is holding, for now, but when it falls apart, and it will, people will die because they were not prepared. I will not let that happen. The sound of approaching ships grew louder. Lisa smiled grimly. That is my ride. You can come with me, Daniel. Join people who understand that peace is just the pause between wars. Or you can stay here with your pet wolf and keep playing diplomat. Daniel felt the weight of the moment. Lisa had been a good officer, someone he had trusted with his life. But she was wrong. The alliance was not perfect, but it was real, worth fighting for. The wolf's name is Coda, Daniel said quietly, and he is not my pet. He is my partner. We are not the same species, but we trust each other. That is what the alliance is about. Choosing to build something better than our fears. Lisa's expression hardened. Then you have already lost. She turned on a device on her wrist and a transport ship came down rapidly, providing cover fire that forced Daniel and Coda back. By the time they could return fire, Lisa was aboard and the ship was speeding away. The team met again at their base ship. The smuggling operation had been disrupted, but the leaders had escaped. Zek had managed to grab some data, financial records that might help track the network. I should have taken the shot, Daniel said, staring at the colonial sky, when I had the chance. You hesitated because she was your friend, Coda said. That is not weakness. That is what separates us from people like Tavan and apparently this Lisa Ortiz. She is organizing a resistance movement. Humans who think the alliance is doomed, preparing for war. Then we prove them wrong. Coda sat beside him. Every successful operation, every threat we stop, every time we show that humans and Keltharians can work together, we prove that the alliance is stronger than fear. Marcus walked up with a data pad. Zek cracked some of the financial records. The weapons shipments are bigger than we thought. This is not just one cell. It is a network across multiple colonies. We are looking at months of work to take it down.